In a world dominated by paid reviews and YouTubers afraid of speaking their minds due to public opinion, I decided to bring you something completely unique, how it felt playing games for the very first time. So go ahead, pull up a chair and join me for a very personal chat here at Belmont's Tavern, where the meat is always cold and the memories of youth are always warm. It was 1997. I was 13 years old in my Black Sabbath t-shirt, which you can see right there on the screen, and I had just gotten home from school. And waiting for me was a copy of this game called Symphony of the Night. Upon first glance, I felt it was just a new game. What is this, Symphony of the Night? What the hell? But it wouldn't take me very long to realize how wrong I was. Once I inserted my name and the game loaded, boom, there I was at the end of the game, right in front of Dracula's chambers. I thought, what the hell, is my game broken? But that feeling was soon washed away by the awesome heavy metal soundtrack that played during Richter's heroic climb of those stairs, leading to the Lord of Darkness himself. Upon reaching his chambers, I was met with a very philosophical dialogue between Dracula, who's highly intelligent, and Richter, the vampire hunter. And of course, even though both made very strong points, one was unable to convince the other. So the final battle began. It was a very strange and yet awesome feeling to me, because not even 2 minutes into the game and there he was, already fighting Dracula. He even changed into his ultimate demonic form. I was blown away by the graphics and the expertly composed music, which made everything grand and absolutely epic. After the battle ended with me emerging victorious, I learned that that was actually an event from the past. Richter had been missing for some time now, and that powerful forces were working on the soul of a man named Alucard. I thought, okay, who is this guy? The game would promptly answer my question, as the next scene would show Alucard running through the night, dashing through the forest at superhuman speed and invading Dracula's castle to put an end to his father's reign of terror once more. Then I began realizing what the game was all about. As I fought my way through the castle, I eventually gained the level, so I thought, wait, is this an action RPG? Awesome! Alucard was all powerful with his royal top-of-the-line equipment, taking down enemies in a single blow from his almighty sword, until something unimaginable happens. Death itself came and took all of my equipment away. I began realizing, okay, this is completely different from what I expected from a regular Castlevania game. I'm gonna be gaining levels, and one of the first enemies you destroy drops a sword to you, and it's very weak. And you go to your menu and you equip it, and I began thinking, well, am I gonna get another one? Am I gonna get better swords? Am I gonna get better gear? And the answer was a resounding yes. As I explored the castle, I began finding different types of equipment left and right, and for a guy like me who enjoys RPG elements, enjoys evolving, enjoys progressing, enjoys evolving your character, this was fucking awesome. I remember the first time I found the Alucard sword, the fake version, the Chinese fake version, and thinking, oh wow, I actually found Alucard sword, but no, it was Alucard with a T, not a D, and its status were shit. But if you equip all of Alucard with the T's equipment, then I came to realize that my luck stats would improve, and by having bigger luck, I could get more equipment more easily. So I would play a vast majority of the game with that equipment alone, just to find better swords, mails, shields, and even rings. And with every single new area, every single new room that I entered, my jaw always hit the floor. The amount of detail they put into this game was jaw-dropping, still is to this very day. And it's been almost 30 years ever since it was released. I've been finding new enemies every single corner. Every area had different types of enemies. The developers, they just made sure that this would be the most amazing 2D title you'd ever see in your entire life, and this still holds true to this very day. I remember how amused I was whenever I entered a new area, how I was so looking forward to seeing what they had in store for me. You had fleeing men, Medusa heads, wolves, skeletons, sniper skeletons, giant skeletons, all sorts of enemies, floating armors, everything, you name it, it was here. And in my teenage head, that was awesome, that was paradise. I had found my perfect game. And mind you, the first time I played Symphony of the Night was the Japanese version. So that whole ordeal of finding the silver and gold rings, equipping them at the clock tower, going down the elevator, entering, well, the place which would be the place of Dracula's rebirth, only in the inverted castle, to find Maria, to finally get those glasses so I can defeat the curse that Shaft was using to control Richter, was something I would have no way in hell of knowing that was supposed to be done. So I spent countless hours just going everywhere inside the castle, looking at every nook and cranny. And you know what else was amazing? It didn't bother me because the game was so awesome, the game was so amazing, that I must have spent like 10 hours just going about, just looking for anything that I could, maybe something that I missed, maybe a secret passage, but no. In the end, all I had to do was find 2 rings, which I eventually find out due to a video game magazine which covered the game still in Japanese. Then I was able to progress, and then I was able to beat the game. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's not talk about beating the game just yet. There's a lot of ground to cover here, man. This was my very first time playing the game. I had no idea. I had no magazines, no guys. Initially, I had no guides with me. I remember that no magazine had covered the game in Japanese just yet, when I had bought the game. So every single little thing that I found, every single piece of progress that I made was unique, was a victory in and out of itself. From finding the snorkel to be able to go underwater, to pushing a button after the waterfall to make it so that an ape skeleton would spawn at a very specific point inside the cavern, so he would throw a barrel over a wooden bridge and break it to you, revealing a new area. I had to find those things all by myself, and it took me ages to do so. I had nothing to guide me, and wouldn't have this experience in any other way, because the more I searched, the more I looked, the more I dove deeper into the Castlevania Symphony of the Night's world, the more I fell in love with it. And once I had about 97% of the first map, I was finally able to reach the second one. Actually, before that, let's talk about a little item called Spike Breaker, the armor, which will make us speak about the bosses themselves. You see, the Spike Breaker armor is hidden inside the catacombs, and the catacombs is housed to a boss called Grand Falloon, or Legion. I even made a very special video about what a Grand Falloon means. It's a concept by Kurt Vonnegut, and people really seem to enjoy it, so I'm gonna leave the link for it right now on screen, so you can know what Grand Falloon really means, and it has everything to do with this boss. It's basically an amalgamation of people based on nothing. People band together based on absolutely nothing. That's why the Legion is nothing but a mass of lost souls. And I remember the first time I looked at that boss, I thought, what the fuck is this? It instantly became one of my favorite bosses in the entire game. Now, not because of its difficulty, because it wasn't all that hard. Matter of fact, none of the bosses really are once you're in your second or third playthrough. But the sheer size of it, there was so much to destroy that boss. I always loved huge bosses. And the scenery, the background on which the battle happens, you see all those infinite skulls, those masses of people that have been there for God knows how long. And that's something else that the game also excelled at, telling story throughout its scenery, throughout its graphic design, not just, script, voice dialogue. But still talking about the bosses themselves, I couldn't believe at how many bosses they managed to put inside a single game. Now, a game of this magnitude to me back then was unheard of. Not even Super Metroid had that many bosses in my mind. And they were all very unique in their design. I still remember the werewolf boss, which you find inside the caves, not the catacombs, but the caves. The werewolves with, not actually werewolves, there's that woman with the wolf heads in front of her, 3 wolf heads. I still think that's one of the prettiest boss designs ever done. And it was very easy to see, eventually I began noticing when I would be entering a boss arena, because the game would take just a second longer, a split second longer to load. Whenever that happened, I thought, oh boy, here we go again. And I was always amazed. This game never let me down in terms of boss design. And another thing that I must comment that I thought was awesome back then was that, I was never big into Castlevania up until Symphony of the Night, because it was just too difficult. You had all those death bits, those death traps that knock back damage. It was ridiculous. So I thought, yeah man, I want to get into this. I think the graphics are awesome, the gameplay is good, but it just wouldn't do it for me. But in Symphony of the Night, there isn't a single death pit. You will not die by falling in a hole. And if that wasn't already enough, when you finally defeat Shaft, the curse he put on Richter, you gain access to the whole game again, but upside down. When I saw that, I thought, Jesus fucking Christ, this game is perfect, because Symphony of the Night was, and still is, to me, one of those games where I just didn't want it to end. I wanted to keep on playing it forever and ever and ever. And when I saw that I'd be able to play through the whole game again, only in an upside down manner, I was delighted. I was so happy, because I thought, yeah man, I'm gonna keep on going for this for hours and hours and hours, and I did. Now of course, in the second castle, things do get much harder, so I died a lot in the second castle, at least on my first playthrough. But then I'd also begin learning a few things. Where are certain items? Where's the Crusagram, which was a weapon I got, I believe, on my second playthrough. Yes, I believe it was on my second playthrough. But even if I kept on dying because I was just very new at the game, maybe I wasn't leveled up enough, and I didn't have good gear or whatever, the joy of playing Symphony of the Night never left me for a single moment in that very first playthrough. Symphony of the Night is without a doubt one of the top 5 games I would love to forget that I ever played, just so I could go back and play it all together for the very first time again. But we're not done just yet. No, of course not, because after you beat the game, you could play as Richter Baumann. Yes, the very guy who you played with at the very beginning of the game. And this changed things dramatically because Richter doesn't level up. His health increases as you pick up HP max up items, but Richter doesn't level up. And things are hard as shit if you're playing as them and you're not abusing the item crash function on certain areas. And I'm not even going to talk about the Saturn version, which allowed you to play as Maria. And also, of course, the game had several endings. You know, if you defeated Richter, if you defeated Dracula with a higher percentage, this game had plenty of reason for me to keep on coming back to it over and over and over again. I think if I put together, you know, every single hour that I played this game for, dude, we must be looking at 600, 700 hours throughout the years, you know, ever since this game was released, because it's just so good, it's just so beautiful. And in my eyes, you know, the memories are still as warm as the sun, like I always say, and it's one of the top 5 games of all time. And then, of course, you had the showdown with Dracula himself. This wasn't a vampire hunter versus Dracula, this was Dracula versus his son, and the exchange between them, of course, once I played the English version and I could actually understand what they were talking about, was very emotional, was very powerful, with Alucard saying, "Trouble the soul of my mother no more." And even something that was beautiful, actually it was very moving to me, was Dracula and Alucard making amends after, just moments before Dracula died. So to top it off, on top of all those things I've told you about, all those things, every single thing that Castlevania had to offer, it also offered me an emotional ending. And when I beat it, I was like, what the hell did I just play? I was sure I had played the greatest game of all time. Now, nowadays I don't know if that's the case anymore, but like I said, it's certainly one of the top 5 ever. Now, if you've enjoyed this video and would like to hear more stories like this from our memories, then I invite you to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Your support is very much appreciated. This was Baumann speaking to you, and I'll see you next video. Later.